Hey guys, so I wanted to drop a quick up. It's never quick. What am I talking about? Always just ramble and talking shit. Yeah, in theory, a quick update because these past couple weeks have been pretty busy for me. I missed last week. I've been doing a lot of convention prep. Awesome Con is coming up this weekend, and so between convention prep and regular work, I just haven't set aside time to sit down and record a video of like a nice time lapse or a model and then time lapse it, and then do a nice little voiceover with an intro and all that fun shit. So this is just camera on, straight off the dome, no editing, and I want to talk about conventions because the weather is getting nicer in theory, and convention season is ramping up, and we've already had a couple of conventions already. So I wanted to talk about reasons why you should go to conventions because they are awesome, and reasons why you should probably just stay the fuck home because conventions are also terrible. So this is from the perspective of a cartoonist, illustrator, web cartoonist, all that kind of stuff. But if you're part of any circuit that has conventions on the regular, some of these ideas or thoughts can probably apply to you. So in general, let's go with the positives first. When people ask me if they should do conventions and they're just starting out in their career as a cartoonist or an illustrator, I say, of course. The very big picture, standing back 1,000-foot view of the convention circuit, you definitely should do conventions. They are a great way to meet your fellow creators. A lot of times people who make the big decisions like editors or publishers go to these conventions to meet prospective creators. So it's a place where all the industry heads gather together and you can schmooze and hang out, especially if you're into the bar scene. You can hang out at the hotel bars and meet some of your favorite authors or creators or editors and stuff like that and get some conversations going and talk about potential projects. Because half of the way to get a job these days in any professional field, it's who you know. And the best way to find people who are doing the things that you want to do or are working in the same field is to go where those people are. And if you don't live in a city that has access to all these people, the convention circuit is the next best place to go. Other benefit of going to a convention is meeting fans and expanding your fan group. Unless you're an asshole. If you're an asshole, just stay the fuck home. But in general, the people I'm talking to are not assholes and actually enjoy other people's company. So it's a great way to expand your social network in terms of fans and sell your stuff and show your wares and meet people and talk with people and see what they're interested in. If you're going to like a very specific convention, like there was a Doctor Who convention this past weekend, you can talk to people about like the new Doctor and all the fun stuff about Daleks and Cybermen and all that kind of stuff and the actors and things like that. So if you're looking for a peer group, not just people who are creators, but people who are fans of stuff, conventions are a great place to meet people. If you like meeting people. If you don't like meeting people, conventions can be terrifying and horrible. From a sales point of view, it's kind of a crapshoot. If you're going to a very focused convention like a small press expo and you're a new creator and you're trying to get your comics out there and all you've managed to do is put together like a little mini, well, Small Press Expo is perfect for you because the audience that attends smaller cons like a Small Press Expo or conventions that are very focused on a particular niche, they are hungry for new stuff. When I used to go to SPX as an attendee, my wallet would just run out of my pocket, and I would come home with stacks and stacks of books. My wife, who doesn't normally read a lot of comics, whenever she goes to Small Press Expo, she always comes back with a stack of stuff. Small Press Expo is great for smaller creators. I've heard great things about like TCAF, some of those the other small press shows like Ape in San Francisco, I think. But there are a couple of these small press shows that are perfect for new creators to get exposure and to meet new fans and to make decent sales, especially if you live in the area. If you don't live in the area that the con is, it can be a little bit more rough, but we'll talk about that in the second section of this. So sales can be great if the audience is hungry for new stuff. If you're going to a big convention like an Awesome Con, which I like to term as an everything con, because Awesome Con doesn't just focus on comics. They have, if you look at the guest list, it's huge. They've got wrestlers, they've got movie stars, they've got TV stars, they've got YouTubers, they got everybody. Slice of every geek life converging in DC. Those shows can be a little bit more difficult to peg in terms of sales unless you have a deep catalog of stuff that appeals to a whole bunch of people, or if you do a lot of fan art. Fan art tends to do well at those big conventions because the attendees are looking for very specific things, or they're looking for things that are related to that fun thing that they're going to. If they're a wrestling fan and they're going to AwesomeCon, if you've got stuff on your table that's wrestling related, like prints and things like that, and pins about wrestlers, you might do pretty good. If it's like just clever, I don't know. If your stuff isn't, let's say you're into tokusatsu and you have a whole bunch of like Power Ranger fan art and Kamen Rider Super Sentai fan art, like I might this time, you might not do so well because tokusatsu isn't that well known in the States, unfortunately, which sucks because it's great and fun and y'all should be watching Kamen Rider. But if you're bringing stuff like that to one of these everything conventions like an AwesomeCon, you might get lost in the shuffle. So it's kind of bridging the gap between why you should and why you shouldn't do conventions. But the other awesome thing about conventions is some of these bigger shows have panels, and they take panel submissions from just about anybody. So if you have a passion about a specific topic and you want to talk about it, you can apply to be a panelist at one of these shows. And it's great because you can express your opinion in front of an audience and kind of be an expert voice in that specific or in a particular genre of thing. Like our friend Ross, he's a designer, he's really into coffee. Maybe if he decided to do like a design and coffee panel at one of these cons, they would say yes and he would gain a lot more fans. So running panels is a great way to meet like-minded people, but it's also a great way to become an expert voice in that field that you want to do. If I was a smarter person, I might try to do like a tokusatsu panel at like AwesomeCon or something like that. Anime shows, if you're doing an anime show, you should be well versed in anime in the products that you're selling. If you're not selling direct fan art, it should be like fan art adjacent to anime stuff. So there you go. So reasons to do cons: great to meet people, great to meet fellow creators, great for networking, great for getting possible jobs, great for just having a lot of fun, and possibly making money. Maybe. I mean, that should be lower on the list of things, I feel, because if you go into a convention expecting to make all these sales and you botch, well, you're going to feel like you wasted your time. But if you go to a con and you're losing money, but you make all of these great connections, maybe one of those connections can lead to a serious gig. So, you didn't really lose out. You lost money that day, but down the road you gained money because you got this awesome gig. So, it's one of those kind of things. So, reasons why you should not go to a convention. Number one is financing. Cons cost money. Caveat there. One of my friends, Monica, decided that she was sick of the regular convention circuit and she was tired of not seeing her friends. So she decided to start a show herself, and the premise is pretty sweet. You just go to a bar, you set up a table, sell comics, talk about comics, and it's a free show for everybody to hang out. So like attendees don't have to pay anything. And people tabling, it's like a $25 fee. So that's like a drop in the bucket. And we just go and we hang out at a bar and we talk about comics and we show off our wares and people can come in and drink and hang out and learn more about our stuff. It's called Bmore into Comics. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. But since that small idea, it's kind of grown. We've kind of gotten like bigger and bigger each year. It still happens at a bar, but like there's a waiting list of people. So if you're interested in starting small, which is what I suggest if you're doing the con circuit, and you're in the Baltimore, Maryland area, you should hit up Bmore into Comics. So there are a handful of shows that are quite affordable, and if they're near you, that's a great way to start. So like if there's like a local comic show, sometimes during Free Comic Book Day, your local comic book store will put on an event, and if they can't, if they're open to new creators, maybe you can talk with like the manager there and say, hey, I'm a local creator. Can I participate in whatever you guys got going for Free Comic Book Day? So stuff like that. But in general, the hardest hurdle to get around is the money aspect of going to a convention, because oftentimes you have to pay for travel. So either you're driving to a place or you're parking at a place. And if it's in a different city, you need housing. So even if you're Airbnb it, that's going to cost some money unless you have friends that live in the area, which is always cool. If you can cut out one of those expenses, it's going to make your life a lot easier. But in general, you're going to have to pay for lodging and travel. Then you got to buy the table. And table prices can range anywhere from like, $50 on the very, very low end to like $350 on the upper end. So you got to pay for a table. And a lot of conventions also force you to buy a membership to the convention. So table fee, convention fee, parking fees, traveling fees, all of that shit can add up. And that's before your merch fees. So to do a convention, you got to bring some stuff. And that always costs money. So there are a lot of costs involved in doing these conventions. And if you're just starting out, it can add up really quickly. And it can be really distressing because, before you even get to the con floor, you're out like $600-700. And if you're just starting out in your career, that can be a huge hit. And if you're not very well known, it can be really tough to get to recoup that kind of money. And the other thing about conventions is you actually do better the more you do a convention. So the first year you do a small convention or a big convention, nobody knows who you are. Second year, people recognize you. Third year, people are like, oh, you're that person. And then they'll start spending money. But that's like 2 to 3 years of no money, busting your ass to get a little bit of headway. And then the demographics of the con is going to change because they decide that they want to change things up and invite different types of guests and shit like that. So financing is always a big problem, and especially if you're starting out, the table fees at like an Awesome Con or Otakon or a Small Press Expo can be prohibitive. Of the three I just mentioned, I would still recommend Small Press Expo, even if you're paying for half a table. Go in with some of your friends, because like I said, for new creators, SPX, they love comics. Audience loves comics. They buy comics. They buy a lot of comics. They buy minis. Very few people sell minis in their comic shops, but a Small Press Expo, if you have like a little 16-page mini, you can do pretty well. Anyway, so financing can suck. The other problem, if you're going to one of these bigger shows like the Everything show that's focused more on the entertainment side of things, it can be tough to stand out in a crowd, because if you're bringing all original works and you're not doing fan art and all that kind of stuff, no matter how good it is, sometimes you're going to have crowds and crowds of people just walking past you to like, oh, somebody drew somebody from Ready Player One. I love that movie. Yay! Although it's all the same old shit from the 80s, but whatever. I love that. Oh, and you have this gorgeous piece that's amazing, that took you hours and hours and hours, and it's printed on like really good quality paper. You might get ignored at one of these bigger shows, and that's always a bummer. Because you put your heart and soul into your stuff and you want people to notice. Like if you don't know the demographics of the con that you're going to, it can be kind of tough. If you don't know, so like if you're going to go to one of these bigger shows, I would recommend maybe getting a one-day pass and just walking around the artist alley and seeing what's moving, and maybe talk to the artists there and see how they're doing, and scope it out before you dive right in, because the expenses can be prohibitive, but it's always good to scout out ahead to make sure you're aiming at the right shows. Other thing, shows sitting at a table for like 6 to 8 hours doesn't sound like that big a deal, but it can be physically draining and emotionally draining. So if you're a person who kind of wears your emotions on your sleeve, and you get tired easily, and when you get tired and hungry, you get cranky. You might not want to do the con circuit because people's first impression can last. And if their first impression of you is, Mr. Sourpuss, and you're feeling like shit and you're just kind of grumbling all day and you're hunched over and you're looking at your phone and you're not interacting with people, that's going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. So the next time they see your name in a thing, they'll be like, oh, that's that fucker. They're on that bullshit. I ain't going to hang out with them. So if you have a weak constitution, or if you just don't handle crowds well, stay on social media and promote your stuff that way. But maybe the con circuit isn't for you. So if you're a more introverted person, or if you just don't like crowds, or if you know that you get hangry and you always forget to bring snacks, bring fucking snacks. By the way, bring snacks. Always feed yourself. But if you get that way, just don't put yourself through the torture of the con circuit, because it's a grind. It's a grind like everything else, and it's a compressed grind because it's usually 2 or 3 days, and the con hours are pretty long, and you have to sit there, and oftentimes you don't have a buddy with you because you didn't plan far enough ahead, and because your friends have real jobs and they can't always take off work, so you're there alone and no one's around with you, and you're really bad at making friends, and your neighbors are kind of staring at you, so it's so if you get that way around new places, probably stay away from the convention circuit. So yeah, there are some really good reasons why you should go. There are some really good reasons why you shouldn't go. It all just depends on the type of person you are and what your goals are for your career. If you kind of want to get out there and push your stuff in person and meet people and network that way, you don't even have to buy a table if you don't want to do that way. You can go to a show, and then you can find out where the after parties are and just hang out that way and bring some samples and things like that without having to buy a table. So there are ways to get around the financing in a con. I'm going to stop right now because I feel like I'm just kind of rambling. In general, I encourage people to do conventions, but I also encourage people to be careful with their money. So don't hop into one of these big shows right away. Start small and work your way up to one of these bigger shows. And along the way, you're going to be building your audience and that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm going to shut up right now. If you're going to AwesomeCon, I will see you this weekend. If you're not going to AwesomeCon, I'm very sad because I'll miss you. But I'll see you at the next show that I happen to be at. All right, I'm for real going to stop now. All right, because I gotta go. I got more stuff. All right, bye.